Last July, during one of the worst heat waves Texas had seen in a decade, a woman in Austin watered her container garden every single day and still lost 12 plants. Two pots, sitting in the exact same blazing sun, getting almost no water for 3 weeks straight, didn't just survive, they bloomed harder than ever. The difference wasn't luck. It wasn't a fancy irrigation system. It was two plants most gardeners overlook because they don't look special at the nursery. If you've ever watched a container garden crisp up in the July sun, no matter how much you watered it, what you're about to hear is going to change the way you plant containers forever. In this video, I'm breaking down the top 12 drought-tolerant perennials that thrive in containers, take full blazing sun, and barely need watering once established. We're going deep on each one: how to plant it, how to care for it, and the one mistake that kills it fastest. And stick around for number 7. It's a plant so many gardeners accidentally kill by helping it, when the truth is it wants almost the exact opposite of what you think. Before we get into number 1, here's the thing about drought-tolerant gardening. The information changes every single season. New varieties come out, old advice gets debunked, and if you're not subscribed, you're gonna miss the video where I show you exactly which drought-tolerant plants sold at big box stores are actually frauds that'll die on you by August. So hit subscribe now, because that video is coming, and you don't want your containers to be the test case. All right. Let's get into it. Number 1. Lavender. Lavandula angustifolia. Lavender isn't just drought-tolerant, it actually performs worse with regular watering. This Mediterranean native evolved in rocky, sun-baked, nutrient-poor soil, which means the biggest killer of lavender in containers isn't the sun, it's kindness. Gardeners who water it like a tomato plant end up with root rot and a dead plant within a single season. For containers, use a fast-draining mix, 1 part regular potting soil to 1 part coarse sand or perlite. Terracotta pots are ideal because they wick moisture away from the roots. Once established, lavender can go 2 to 3 weeks without water in moderate summer heat and still push out fragrant purple spikes that pollinators go crazy for. Here's the surprising fact. Lavender's silvery gray leaves aren't just for looks. That fine, fuzzy coating is a built-in sun reflector and moisture trap, which is exactly why the grayest-leaved lavender varieties are almost always the most drought-tough ones on the market. But if you think lavender is impressive, wait until you hear about the next plant, because this one doesn't just tolerate drought, it uses it as a survival strategy that most people have completely backwards. Item 2. Russian sage, Perovskaya atriplycifolia. Russian sage looks delicate, tall, airy, silvery blue spires, but it's one of the toughest perennials you can put in a pot. It's not actually a sage at all, it's a member of the mint family, and like lavender, its silvery foliage is a drought survival adaptation, not just an aesthetic choice. In containers, Russian sage needs a pot with serious drainage, multiple holes, ideally elevated on pot feet, so water never pools at the bottom. It despises wet feet. Established plants can handle full, unrelenting sun for 10+ hours a day and will still bloom from midsummer straight through the first frost, which makes it one of the longest blooming plants on this entire list. The surprising fact most people don't know is Russian sage actually gets more drought-tolerant every year it's left alone. Its root system deepens dramatically over 2 to 3 years, so a plant that needed occasional watering in year 1 might need almost none by year 3, as long as you resist the urge to baby it. Number 3 on this list is one that most gardeners plant for the flowers, completely unaware that its real superpower is hiding somewhere they never think to look. Number 3. Sedum, or Stonecrop, Hylotelephium autumn joy, and similar. Sedum is a succulent perennial, and that single fact explains everything about why it survives conditions that kill other plants. Its thick, fleshy leaves store water like a camel stores fat, which means during a drought, the plant is quite literally living off its own internal reserves. In containers, Sedum wants gritty, fast-draining soil and can genuinely be neglected for weeks at a time. Autumn Joy is the classic choice. It starts with pale green rosettes in spring, shifts to soft pink blooms in late summer, and deepens into a rusty bronze red by fall, giving you 3 completely different looks from one plant in one pot. The fact almost nobody knows is Sedum can be propagated from a single broken-off leaf. Just press a fallen leaf into moist soil, and it will root and grow into an entirely new plant, meaning one $8 sedum from the nursery can become a dozen free plants within a year. Quick question for you. How many drought-tolerant plants are you currently growing in containers right now? Type the number in the comments because I genuinely want to know if you're already ahead of the curve or just getting started. And if you're serious about building a garden that survives whatever this summer throws at it, subscribing means you won't miss the follow-up video where I rank the worst drought-tolerant plants that garden centers push on beginners. Item 4. Yarrow, Achillea millefolium. Yarrow has been used for thousands of years, historically for wound care by ancient civilizations, and that toughness translates directly into the garden. Its fern-like, finely dissected foliage isn't just pretty, it dramatically reduces surface area exposed to direct sun, cutting water loss compared to broad-leaved plants. In containers, yarrow thrives in poor to average soil, actually flowering less if the soil is too rich or over-fertilized. It forms flat-topped flower clusters in shades of yellow, red, pink, and white, and it's a magnet for beneficial insects like ladybugs and lacewings that help control pests on your other container plants nearby. The surprising fact, yarrow's roots spread aggressively underground, which means in a container it will eventually fill every available inch of soil, making it one of the few drought-tolerant perennials that actually needs dividing every couple of years just to keep it from overwhelming its own pot. Item 5 is one of the most photographed flowers in America, and almost nobody realizes it's secretly one of the toughest survivors on this entire list. Item 5. Purple coneflower, or Echinacea purpurea. Coneflower's deep taproot is the real secret here. In the ground, that taproot can plunge several feet down to reach groundwater, which is why coneflower is famous for surviving droughts that wipe out shallow-rooted annuals. In a container, that taproot obviously can't go that deep, so choosing a tall, deep pot at least 14 to 16 inches matters enormously for giving the plant room to develop the root structure it's genetically built for. Coneflower blooms from early summer through fall, and its daisy-like petals with that signature raised orange-brown center are a top nectar source for butterflies, especially monarchs during migration season. Deadheading spent blooms will extend flowering, but leaving some seed heads standing through winter provides food for finches and other birds. Here's the fact that surprises people. Coneflower doesn't just tolerate poor soil, it actually needs it. Overly rich, fertilized soil produces weak, floppy stems and fewer blooms. The toughest, most drought-resistant coneflowers are almost always the ones planted in the leanest soil. Number 6 is a plant you've absolutely seen in every roadside meadow in America, and it might be the single hardest perennial on this entire list. Black-eyed Susan is practically indestructible, which is exactly why it's such a staple of American roadsides, prairies, and highway medians, places that get zero irrigation and full, brutal sun all summer long. That same toughness makes it one of the best walk-away and forget-it container perennials you can buy. In pots, it wants full sun and average, well-draining soil, and it will reward you with cheerful golden yellow blooms with dark brown centers from midsummer all the way to the first hard frost. It's also remarkably pest and disease resistant compared to more finicky container flowers, meaning less spraying, less babying, and more just enjoying the color. The surprising fact, Black-eyed Susan self-seeds so readily that a single container left unpruned can produce enough seed to fill 2 or 3 additional pots the following spring, turning one plant purchase into a permanently expanding drought-tolerant collection for free. Real talk for a second. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you killed a sun-loving plant because you were either overwatering out of guilt or underwatering because you forgot? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want the exact watering schedule I use for these 12 plants specifically, hitting subscribe means you'll catch that companion video the moment it drops. Because getting the watering wrong is still the #1 reason people give up on drought-tolerant gardening entirely. Item 7, the most shocking one. Number 7, anise hyssop or Agastache, Agastache. Here's the plant I promised you. Agastache is routinely killed by well-meaning gardeners who see its leaves start to look slightly dull or its growth slow down mid-summer, panic, and start heavily watering and fertilizing it, which is precisely the opposite of what it needs. Agastache is native to dry prairies and rocky slopes, and that mid-summer slowdown is often just the plant conserving energy through peak heat, not a cry for help. In pots, it wants full sun and average, well-draining soil, and it will be one of the most drought-resistant plants on this entire list once established. Some varieties surviving on rainfall alone in regions that get almost no summer rain at all. Its licorice-scented foliage and tall spikes of tubular flowers make it a hummingbird and bee magnet, often outperforming purpose-bought hummingbird plants at attracting them. The genuinely shocking part: overwatering Agastache doesn't just risk root rot, it can cause the plant to grow tall, weak, and floppy while producing dramatically fewer flowers, meaning a well-intentioned gardener who waters it generously every day can end up with a worse-looking, less blooming plant than someone who almost completely ignores it. The less you interfere, the better it performs, and that single fact runs against nearly everything traditional gardening advice teaches you. If number 7 surprised you, item 8 is going to surprise you even more, because this next one is often mistaken for a weed by people who don't know what they're looking at. Item 8. Salvia. Salvia nemorosa, sometimes called meadow sage, produces dense, upright spikes of purple-blue flowers and is one of the most reliable rebloomers on this list. Its slightly fuzzy, aromatic leaves are a natural deer and rabbit deterrent, which is a huge bonus for container gardeners dealing with local wildlife raiding their pots. In containers, salvia wants full sun and well-draining soil, and the trick to maximizing bloom time is shearing the plant back by about a third after the first flush of flowers fades. This single step can trigger a second, sometimes even a third round of blooms through the remainder of summer, something most gardeners never do because they're afraid of hurting the plant. The surprising fact: salvia's roots release natural compounds that can suppress the germination of nearby weed seeds, meaning a container of salvia isn't just drought-tolerant, it's quietly doing pest and weed control work most gardeners have no idea is even happening. Item 9 is a plant so tough it's been spotted growing out of literal cracks in concrete parking lots, and it still produces some of the most vivid color on this entire list. Item 9. Blanket flower. Blanket flower gets its name from its resemblance to the vivid, multicolored blankets woven by Native American tribes, and its red and yellow, sunset-toned petals genuinely earn the comparison. It's native to the dry plains and prairies of North America, which means it's engineered by nature itself to handle poor soil, blazing heat, and long dry spells. In containers, Gaillardia is one of the least fussy plants you'll ever grow. It actually prefers being slightly underwatered and under-fertilized, producing more compact, more floriferous growth in lean conditions. It blooms non-stop from early summer through fall and is a strong pollinator draw for native bees and butterflies. The surprising fact: blanket flower is naturally short-lived as a perennial, often lasting only 2 to 3 years, but it self-seeds so reliably that most gardeners never notice, because new seedlings quietly replace the older plants before they ever seem to disappear. Item 10 is a plant that smells incredible, looks like a wildflower, and might be the single most long-maintenance perennial on this entire list. Item 10. Catmint. Nepeta x Fascenii. Catmint is often confused with catnip, and while they're closely related, Catmint's blue lavender flower spikes and soft gray-green foliage make it a far more ornamental container choice. It's one of the most drought-tolerant perennials available at almost any garden center, and unlike many plants on this list, it tolerates a slightly wider range of soil conditions. In pots, catmint blooms for months on end, and, like salvia, can be sheared back after its first flush to trigger repeat blooming through the rest of the season. Its scent is a natural deterrent for aphids and other common pests, which means a pot of catmint near your vegetable containers can actually help protect them. The surprising fact, catmint contains nepentolactone, the same compound found in catnip that makes cats roll around in ecstasy, meaning if you have an outdoor cat, your drought-tolerant, low-maintenance container might become the most popular spot in your entire yard, cat included. Item 11 isn't a flower at all. And that's exactly why so many gardeners overlook it when building a drought-tolerant container. Item 11. Little Bluestem, Schizocarium scopium. Little Bluestem is a native ornamental grass, and its inclusion on this list matters because grasses are some of the most underrated drought performers in American gardening. Its fine, upright blue-green blades turn a stunning copper, orange, red in fall, giving container gardens a season of color and texture long after most flowering perennials have finished for the year. In containers, Little Bluestem needs almost nothing: average soil, full sun, and infrequent watering once established, since its extensive fibrous root system is specifically adapted to survive prairie droughts that can last months. It also provides critical winter structure and habitat, with many gardeners leaving the dried blades standing through winter for birds and beneficial insects. The surprising fact, unlike most perennials on this list that need dividing to stay healthy, Little Bluestem actually prefers to be left almost completely undisturbed for years, and disturbing its roots too often can set the plant back significantly rather than help it. And that brings us to the final plant on this list, one that might not even look alive most of the time, and that's exactly the point. Hens and chicks, Sempervivum tectorum. Sempervivum literally translates to always alive in Latin, and it's not an exaggeration. This rosette-forming succulent is arguably the single toughest plant on this entire list, capable of surviving weeks, sometimes over a month with zero water, all while sitting in full, unfiltered summer sun. In containers, hens and chicks need almost no soil depth and thrive in shallow, gritty, fast-draining mixes, making them perfect for smaller pots, strawberry planters, or even mixed succulent bowls. The hen is the mean rosette, and the chicks are the small offsets it continuously produces around its base, meaning one plant naturally multiplies into a dozen or more over just a couple of seasons. The final surprising fact: hens and chicks are so cold-hardy and drought-tolerant that some varieties have historically been planted on rooftops in parts of Europe, based on an old belief that they protected homes from lightning strikes. And whether or not that legend holds up, the plant's genuine ability to survive extreme neglect in extreme conditions is very real. Here's the pattern hiding underneath every single plant on this list. Every one of them became tough by being ignored. Lavender, Russian sage, Agastache, Sedum, hens and chicks, none of them evolved in rich, pampered, well-watered soil. They evolved on rocky slopes, dry prairies, and sun-blasted meadows, where the plants that survived were the ones that needed the least. Which means the biggest shift you can make in your container garden this summer isn't buying more plants, more fertilizer, or a better watering can. It's choosing plants that were built by nature to thrive on neglect, and then having the discipline to actually leave them alone. The gardeners who struggle most with containers aren't the ones who don't care enough. They're the ones who care so much they water and fuss their plants into an early grave. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for your garden is simply less. If this video saved even one of your containers this summer, the next one is going to save your whole garden. I'm breaking down the exact watering mistakes that kill drought-tolerant plants, and why the advice on most plant tags is dead wrong for containers specifically. That video is coming soon, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Before you go, drop a comment and tell me which item on this list surprised you the most, or let me know your city or state so I can see just how many climates this list is helping out this summer. I read every single comment. Thanks so much for spending this time with me today. Get out there, get your hands dirty, and I'll see you in the next one.